Visiting a memorial like this, I'm so often reminded of the rhetoric from the left and right, the constant threats to bomb into oblivion, nuke, and the boots on the ground. You would think, with the failures in the Middle East, we would be reluctant to send our sons and daughters to die in combat. As president, I'll make sure any use of force is justified and absolutely necessary for the security of our country, so we don't have more names to add to this wall. As president, I'll make sure that our veterans come home to the care and support. The majority of Americans who identify with the two parties actually share more in common than the establishment wants you to think. Similar ideas on immigration, national security, and less bureaucracy should be a catalyst for cooperation. As president, I'll make sure we reach across party lines to actually do something. We should reduce our dependency on oil. We gain absolutely nothing by denying climate change and have everything to lose by not being proactive about it. And even if we are wrong about it, there's a lot to gain by going green. Over the past 4 decades, federal and state governments have poured over $1 trillion into drug war spending and relied on taxpayers to foot the bill. Unfortunately, these tax dollars have gone to waste. The U.S. is now the world's largest jailer. Drugs remain widely available and treatment resources are scarce. As president, I will redistribute money for the DEA into the rehabilitation and recovery of addicts. Hello, my name is Roberto Mann, candidate for president. This age of politics may well be known as the age of the divide. The two factions that control our political system have been divided like never before. No one is willing to compromise, and both parties are pushing to the extreme wing. The government cannot come up with an effective budget, foreign policy, or come to an agreement on domestic policy. It's time for change, a visible change, not just rhetorical. A republic gets two choices selectively chosen by a few and stifling the rise of any viewpoints. The result is two choices that the American people as a whole cannot stand, but end up having to choose the lesser of two evils. Ironically, these two evils are similar in their quest to increase the federal government's power. What about those that believe their Second Amendment rights should be protected, but also believe marriages between two consenting adults regardless of sex and the government should not be in the business of relationships? Where's that party? We constantly are asked to pick the lesser of two evils, but the lesser of two evils is still evil. As president, I propose new political legislation that will allow an environment where third, fourth, even fifth party candidates actually have a chance to be heard. I will also hold the government responsible for its ever-increasing debt and inability to budget properly. At this point, a real monetary crisis or collapse of currency is the only way our government will act to solve our financial problems. We can take smaller steps now or face much worse later. Though the economic variables and climate of America is much different than Greece, the underlying issue is that the Greek economy collapsed because the government spent well beyond its means. This is an issue we have to face. By not dealing with it, we are dealing a great disservice to our country and our children. We continue to be the strongest nation on the planet. The U.S.'s military budget is larger than the next 9 largest military budgets combined. The kicker is the lack of oversight and overcharging for large contracts throughout the Department of Defense, such as the F-35. We can cut the military budget 10%, provide increased pay for our troops, and dominate the battlefield if we add oversight and controls of our military expenditures. We need to increase the visibility and accountability of large defense procurement contracts. We must also reevaluate our fight. Is a conflict absolutely necessary for the defense of the United States? Iraq, Syria, Libya, and Egypt have all shown that without a heavy-handed secular dictator, the region will revert to religious extremist factions hell-bent on the annihilation of one another. Due to the power vacuums created by faulty policy, the sectarian divisions that were kept in check by dictators has devolved into a cancer. That being said, no Western army will ever fully pacify the Middle East. The culture differences are just too vast. If the U.S. wants to defeat ISIS, we need to accept our past mistakes and prioritize our fight. The Kurds have been the key to holding ground against ISIS in Iraq. The Kurds are mostly secular and not drawn into religious fighting. In Iraq, I've lost friends on the battlefield and from the consequences of the battlefield at home. At the end of the day, I don't see those lost as a waste in Iraq and Afghanistan. Your average soldier has no part in the politics or the errors of governments. There was a mess created by the U.S. We were sent there to clean it up. And we did so. We extinguished many lives whose sole purpose was evil. We exhumed mass graves of women and children so that they could have a proper burial. We did the right thing for that situation. However, that situation never should have existed. Illegal immigration. This is a personal and passionate topic for many Americans. The country was built by immigrants. However, we cannot deny that the country has a problem. The lack of security and the bureaucracy that legally immigrates to the United States must be resolved. I will fight for immigration reform that benefits the American people while holding true to our record of being humanitarians. We can increase physical border security. However, the scope of such project is immense and will need to be spread out over numerous years. It makes no logistical or financial sense to use vast resources to round up every illegal immigrant in this country. Amnesty can be the only reasonable solution. Registered migrants will need to apply for residency and file for a tax ID. Unregistered immigrants who cannot abide by the law will be deported. Yes, they broke the law, that is correct. However, we should look deep in our souls and thank the powers that be that we were born in the United States, not somewhere where you would do anything to better or save the lives of your children, even if that means breaking the law. The country continues to be leagues behind other developed nations in the world. Support for the education system has backfired, increasing the pressure of teachers to teach to test, and in many cases encouraging the falsifications of test results to gain federal grants. One of the only areas I will increase the budget will be for education. Not for the Department of Education, but for the reallocation of funds to school infrastructure and support for our teachers. Teachers should not be asked to provide their own supplies from their already unappreciative salary. Standards should be devised at the local level, leaving the federal government as a support vessel, not oversight. I support the women's right to choose while also acknowledging that human life is sacred. We must focus more into preventing unwanted pregnancies in the first place. However, I see no evidence that a fetus is cognizant before the first trimester. I fully support a woman's right to choose at this time. In any instance, I support the right to choose when the mother's life is in danger or the fetus is not viable or faces no quality of life. These are my opinions on the matter, but ultimately the Supreme Court has deemed abortion to be legal, and I would plan no legislative challenge to this ruling. We cannot ignore the scientific basis for climate change. We can roll the dice and side with the oil lobbyists or heed the advice of most of the nation's scientists. We have nothing to gain by denying climate change, however, we have the future of civilization to lose should we not be proactive. Fossil fuels are not an endless supply. No matter the impact of global warming, the country can gain so much by pursuing renewable means of energy. This is not only an American problem. We need to work closely with all developed countries to devise ways to remain productive while protecting our one home in the universe. Looking at the root cause of our healthcare problems. No pun intended, but we're attempting to put a band-aid on a bullet wound. The reason healthcare is so unaffordable is because we allow health providers and companies to dictate their charges based on their whim. Why would it cost $600 for someone to take their child into an ER and then to check their temperature and administer a popsicle? It's ridiculous. It is a vicious cycle. Hospitals bill an absurd amount for a procedure that cannot be paid by the patient, thus the hospital passes the cost on to the next patient. We have to hold pharmaceutical and medical corporations accountable. I do not support the overreach of government into the public sector. However, allowing this price gouging to occur has severely hurt the American people and their general welfare. Concerning social issues, socially, America has come a long way from pre-civil rights era. However, we continue to face intolerance and persecution by gender, race, and sexual orientation. We must continue to protect civil liberties and reinforce civil rights. We need justice that is impartial to race, and we need to remove the government's attempt to define marriage. As president, I will focus on legislation and policies that strengthen America in the long term, not just throwing more debt and feel-good legislation at it. It's time to come together for sound economics, state rights, constitutional protections, a smart reserve foreign policy, and the reduction of federal oversight and redundancy. I'm Roberto Mann, and I approve this message.